Hold it. What is this? Are you trying to trick me? Is this a kissing book?
I always sort of suspected that the ones who live, the new Walking Dead spinoff with Rick and Michonne, was going to be a disappointment. And for a brief moment in episode 2, I thought I was going to be wrong, because I really enjoyed that episode. But overall, the season's been fairly mixed. I didn't really like the season premiere because it had a lot of like voiceover narration that I thought was really cheesy and Gimple-speaky. They killed off the new character, Nat, I believe his name was. He was blink and you'll miss him. He was there for such a short period of time. And he was great, but then he was gone. And then episode 3 was like, it was okay. We got to see a little bit more of the CRM and whatnot. Then we got to episode 4, which I talked about last week, which was just this tedious, like, endless dialogue between Rick and Michonne, this fight they had where they kept repeating the same lines over and over again. And it was just so friggin' obnoxious. And then there was such silly things like them having sex as the building was collapsing. And it's like, I don't know. It did not need to be as much of that as it was. They really could have gotten like 10 minutes and then, on with the story, but I don't know. This episode was just as much, if not more, of a disappointment than last week's. They escape. It looks like they're dead. They're scot-free. And really what doesn't work with this episode is the fact that Jadis tracks them down. They drive off. I don't know how far. Clearly they've been driving for a long time. They then hike through the woods to a cabin in the middle of nowhere, and Jadis tracks them down. And she explains this in one of her monologues, her villain monologues, that she noticed the yellow truck that was parked outside the building when they went to destroy the helicopter, the crashed helicopter in the building. And then when they came back, she noticed it was gone. And then she followed them, like, by way of the noodle wrappers that they were throwing out the window. Apparently they had a ton of these tasteful nudes, which is a funny name for a noodle, a really funny name for a ramen noodles. But it was probably the best part of the episode, actually. But apparently she manages to track them by they've just been littering, throwing out a breadcrumb trail for her, because wrappers don't blow away in the wind or anything, and they're very easy to spot as you drive down a highway. And then somehow she tracks them to this cabin. Anyways, it's totally preposterous. It's so absurd. She has them tie themselves up, and she has them at gunpoint, and they still get away. And even though she has guns and she shoots at them, Rick blocks the shots with a bed, and Michonne then jumps out with a little hatchet and hits Jadis, cutting through her Kevlar body armor, whatever kind of body armor the CRM people wear. I mean, it's clearly intended to stop, things like small hatchets. But it cuts in a grievous injury, and Jadis flees the scene, but somehow makes it all the way back to her vehicle, and then they chase her, and then... Anyways, I'm not going to recap the whole thing. Basically, what bothers me is that not only is this hugely implausible that they would be able to track her, that she would be able to track them down, that they would be able to get away from her. It's just over and over again in this episode, Rick and Michonne get out of tight spots where it seems like the tables have turned against them, but they just have no problem. I often reference Ryan George and his hilarious pitch meetings, which I still want him to do a pitch meeting for Night Country. I doubt he will, but it would be awesome. But over and over again in this episode, you have this like, what will they do now? How are they going to get out of this one? Like, that's going to be hard, right? No trouble at all. Barely an inconvenience. Later, Jadis enlists the help of these 3 NPCs that tried to get the jump on them, on Rick and Michonne earlier. But of course, they got out of that no problem, because they have terribly thick plot armor. And all these survivors, even though they've survived like 12 years in the apocalypse, have no idea what they're doing. How does that work? You would think that anybody that they met on the road would be like very dangerous, right? They've survived for 12 years. They would be hardened survivors, seasoned fighters, smart, clever, devious, whatever. Just as leveled up as Rick and Michonne. But no, they're all just putzes. Anyways, Jadis enlists the help of these three, promising them new safety and all that. And they ambush our heroes. But of course, even though it's 4v2, and even though, they've got like the surprise attack, they still lose. Because, barely an inconvenience. The really like hilarious thing about this is the zombies. In two instances I want to talk about. First, they find these like hardened zombies, they're like calcified. When you hit them, like it just you hit them with a sword and it like clangs off. So you think that's going to be a hard zombie to kill, but no, it's barely an inconvenience. Later on, you see Rick just stab one in the face with a knife, and it's no problem. Then these zombies, which has been a problem with Walking Dead forever, in this ambush scene, sneak up on first the first woman, the woman of the NPC woman. They sneak up so silently. They're just stealth assassins, man. Zombies, although when we see them, we're like, grrr, but whenever they need to kill somebody, they can just sneak right up on them. And then that happens to Jadis also. So everyone dies. Everyone dies except for Rick and Michonne, because that's how it goes. The whole thing with Jadis, like having the files, she gets bit, but then she like has her like come to Jesus moment and is like, here's where they are, and like redemptive arc. So now they have to go break into this base and get that stuff. That'll be next week. The other thing in this episode was the cameo. A lot of people thought Morgan was going to show up. Thank God he didn't, because I'm sorry, but after friggin' 5 seasons of Morgan and Fear the Walking Dead, I never want to see him again. It's too much. And he wasn't very good in the main show before that, like all that nonsense that he did in the main show. But no, it's Gabriel. So Gabriel shows up and has been apparently meeting clandestinely with Jadis in an assigned spot on one day every year. And so we get these little flashbacks between them. And they did a good job of building up some tension, like that Jadis had actually killed Gabriel. But she didn't, and I think that's unfortunate. Not because I don't, Gabriel's turned into a fine character, but I think it would have been really ballsy of the show to kill off Gabriel this way. And instead they took the easy route. And Gabriel has the plot armor, so no surprise there. Only Jadis dies. So kind of a waste of a character. Kind of feels like just a waste of a whole arc. I don't know. I don't like it. I didn't like any of that. They kiss a lot. There's a lot of kissing. And once again, I felt like the kid from The Princess Bride when his grandpa's reading him the book and he's like, no, this is not don't tell me this is a kissing book. No, it's fine. I don't mind the kissing. Like, obviously, if you reunite with your lost lover from years and years ago, I would assume that all you would do is kiss and fuck like bunny rabbits, But what with all this CRM drama, they just keep getting interrupted. They didn't even get to have like morning sex because there's Jadis magically showing up out of nowhere, with her magical superheroic tracking powers and observational skills, and terrible haircut. So overall, not a great episode. Probably just about as bad as last week's episode. Stupid characters doing stupid things, tons of plot armor, ridiculous coincidences, conveniences, no tension really, except for thinking maybe Gabriel would get killed. But other than that, just kind of like, wow, that's the second to last episode of the whole season. We don't even know if there will be a second season. And that's what we get. This is what we've gotten for the last few episodes. I mean, it's almost like just filler. I don't know why all these people are gushing over this show, and it's just not very good. I think I prefer Daryl Dixon and Dead City to this at this point. Although I liked a couple episodes of this season, but it's only 6 episodes long, and liking like a third of a season. Like, hopefully, if next week's good, if it's good enough to pull it off, great. But so far, I really think they should have just, instead of doing all these spinoffs, just should have done another season to wrap everything up, all these character arcs, with Find Rick, yada yada. If Daryl could have gone off to help find Rick, we could have had a whole adventure season of finding Rick, and instead we get, I don't know what this even is. So it feels like made for the shippers, for the Rishonites. But even then, like kissing and kissing and like one sex scene doesn't feel like that great of a apocalyptic romance drama to me. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will catch you next time. Peace.